Actually, I didn't even hit record yet, so I'm going to start that giant red button that I forgot to press. All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of David's Saturday Night Sit Back. Today on the show, Heather Bennet. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
She's a personal trainer at Bodywise Gym here in Austin, Texas, but she is more moving into accountability coaching. She's also a business owner, and we're not going to talk about that too much today because it's rising up.
We can talk a little bit.
We can talk a little bit, but I more just
But then I'd have to kill you.
And I don't want to die yet.
We can talk a little bit. Anything more than that, then I'd have to kill you.
It's too early. It's
Yes.
too early. First thing I want to talk about with you, just to kick things off this morning, is about discipline versus motivation. And when I started this podcast, I told myself, a promise I made to me is that I would be very transparent and I would never lie of any question that's asked of me. And just because I want the audience to know, like, we're all going through it. So last night, I sat down and I told myself, I'm going to get this episode fully edited. I'm going to knock one out and then I won't have to think about it for the rest of the week. Ran into audio issues, ran into video issues. The computer, which is a brand new computer I bought 3 weeks ago, froze. So I just got so frustrated. So to try to get out of the funk, I closed the computer, lit up the fireplace, turned on a movie, sat down with the dog and just relaxed. Woke up this morning and just had zero motivation. So I grabbed the dog, we go for a walk. Mm-hmm. Then I went to Ocean Labs, did a 3-minute cold plunge, came back, felt a little bit better, but I'm just in like a mental funk today. But what do you do? I'd love to know, like, on those days when you wake up and you're just like, fuck everything, how do you get out of that?
Well, okay, there's two different elements here that I want to hit on. Because first of all, what I think you dealt with wasn't a lack of motivation. I think it was you were listening to what your spirit's telling you don't like to do. So you don't like doing all the technical part of it. The art of it is what you love.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's your gut, and that is the universe telling you this is not your baby to do this part of it. You need to get this in the hands of somebody who enjoys this part of it. So I think that's more, you need to listen to your gut. That's not lack of motivation. That is, if the more mindful you become, the more acute you will be to understand what your body is telling you. So that was probably what you were feeling.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to go back to the motivation versus discipline. I think it was Brendan Burchard that said this. He's not the biggest, I mean, he doesn't know who I am, so maybe he won't get me in trouble if I've misquoted him. But I'm pretty sure it was him in one of his books. Anyway, he said that motivation is something that we attach to a feeling, when actually it's not. Because if you shorten the word motivation, you get the word motive. Mm. Your motive hasn't changed, so you haven't lost your motivation. It's the energy and the emotion behind that motive that is different. So let's take, for instance, working out. I get a lot of people, they come in, I'm so motivated, I want to lose 50 pounds, I want to get in great shape for the summer, and then 4 weeks later, I've just lost all my motivation. You haven't lost your motivation. You lost the desire and the energy and that dopamine of, oh, I'm going to have this amazing body, I can't wait, this is new, I'm so pumped. That all of a sudden does dissipate because your reward hasn't been met soon enough, and so that wanes. Now, if you go back to what is your motive, you want to look amazing for summer, you still have that. You still have the motivation. You just don't have that dopamine surging through you that provide that reward. So you need to give yourself little dopamine rewards along the way. So maybe it's, I want to be able to see my triceps. You know, I think that's the most common thing I think people notice in the mirror when they're working out, like, oh, look at the triceps are popping.
It's amazing how many times when I'm working out, I'll see myself included. I'm not saying I don't do this, but I'll glance over and you see someone glancing in the mirror and it's just such an easy flex to look over and, oh, there it is.
Yep. And so it's those little things to find the pleasures in the little milestones. It keeps that dopamine reward system going. I mean, we all have the dopamine. It's all the little addictions, right? You look forward to the coffee in the morning, or you look forward to the nooner, or you look forward to all those fun little things during the week, and we sometimes lose track of those. And so it's finding those little pleasurable things partway through your day that keep you going, and especially in workouts, because you need the reward for all that hard work. So with you, it could be a little bit of both too. You need the reward, and you weren't getting the reward because nothing was going your way.
Right.
I don't know how you would implement that. I don't know editing at all, but finding little dopamine rewards. But I think for you, it's just start listening to your gut. You're not supposed to be doing editing.
Yeah.
That's not, you need to leverage what your talent is. Your talent is something else. Your talent's not the editing. So start leveraging your time and put it towards what you're good at.
Yeah. I do get a few dopamine hits from when I do figure it out.
Yeah.
So I've ran into a couple of times when I'm editing an episode and there's a glitch and I'll do a quick Google search and 20 minutes later, solution, pat on the back,
There we go,
you know,
there we go.
and there's a woohoo dopamine hit. But yeah, last night was the first time. It's still a brand new project. You know, it's only been live for 24 days, only been recording for about 60 days.
Mm-hmm.
But this was the first time I felt like I hit a roadblock. And yeah.
And then that's also new little areas that you're learning. I mean, areas where we're learning something aren't usually fun.
Right.
Like our lessons aren't fun. You know, you learn how to drive a little bit more aware after you've already rear-ended somebody.
Right.
You learn what kind of red flags to look for after you've already dealt with a psycho ex.
Right.
You learn through the bad situation. So you're learning different things, and then now you're going to come across that issue again. You're going to remember something that you're not thinking about right now that's going to come into play. You've already learned that situation.
Totally.
So
Speaking of working out, what time do you get to the gym?
I wake up at 3.
What time do you go to bed?
Not early enough. What's tough is I have my son is 16. My daughter's 18. She just moved out. But my son is 16, and I want to see them for a little bit in the evening. And my husband luckily goes to bed the same time as me because he tries to keep the same type of schedule. I get ready for bed anywhere between 7:30 and 8. And then I'm usually in bed by 8:30. I sleep no later than 9.
Okay.
So I usually get about 6 hours of sleep.
You sleep pretty well?
Oh, I like a rock.
Any pre-bedtime rituals when you start getting ready around 8:30?
Okay, this is funny. So I would always, ever since my babies were born, I would sing to them before bed.
Aww.
And now I still do that. I mean, 16 and 18, I still do when I'm hugging them goodnight. I'll sing it a little bit in their ear, and they kind of sing along still to this day. And that actually is one of my little triggers in my mind that it started going, oh, it's bedtime. So I start getting tired the second I do that. And I do the same thing every night, and my body knows, oh, this is our bedtime routine. I take a bath or shower. I brush my teeth. I take my vitamins. I do all those things. By the time I lay down, it's just my body's like, and we're out. So I have no problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wake up at 3, but then it takes me about 30 minutes to get to the gym. So my workout starts probably right around 3:45, 4 o'clock.
I love that to this day you still sing to your kids.
Yeah.
That's so.
Actually, my tattoo here is sunshine in Hebrew, and "You Are My Sunshine" is my daughter's song.
Yeah.
And so for her 18th birthday, we went out and got matching tattoos of sunshine.
What's your son's song?
It's the one my grandpa used to sing to me. It's "I love you, a bushel and a peck, and a hug around the neck." Have you ever heard that one? Oh, it's an
no.
old one. I'm sure a lot of people listening would remember that one, but yeah.
I saw on your Instagram account that you had a post about your grandmother and your grandfather, and you said that it was one of the greatest love stories of all time. I think so many of us, I can speak to it. I'm single, you know, and I would like to be in a relationship. And maybe even some people in relationships are, you know, in a period where they're struggling, or maybe it's even neutral, and they're like, man, the flare's gone. Thinking from, you know, your perspective of observing your grandparents, was there something that they had that made their relationship the greatest love story of all time?
They were very affectionate. My grandfather was in his 80s when he passed, and my grandmother was in her 90s. And so he passed before her. They were only, I think, a few months apart in age. But they met when they were really young, I think 19 or something, and they were together ever since. He had an airline business, or like a plane business, and he had a business partner that messed him over, like just swindled from him, and he lost that business. My grandma was with him through that. They had 2 kids. tried for a long time, went through a lot of procedures. Now this is back in the 50s of trying to figure out why she couldn't have kids. And finally, they adopted my uncle. And then shortly after that, they got pregnant with my mom. And those are their 2 kids. They moved to the United States from Canada. He worked for a Christian publishing company and then moved up the ranks there. But they just, I never saw them fight. I mean, they had disagreements, but I never saw them raise their voice at each other, ever. And I lived with them for a period of time. They were just, my grandpa would always grab her and kiss her on the neck, and I'm going to bamboozle you. And he would do that to us, just kiss us on the cheek. I'm going to bamboozle you. And he would just, like, squeeze us. And he was just a loving man. And he served her, and she served him. They just served each other. It was never a, I'm right, you're wrong. It was just, they were sacrificed for each other. It was just beautiful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and my grandpa was a very tender man. He was a strong man, but very, very emotional. Like, if my grandma said something that made him happy, he'd tear up and just look at her and say, I love you. And, I mean, they just loved each other. Yeah, it was cute.
That is cute.
Yeah.
I also saw that you got the opportunity several years ago to meet Branch Warren.
Yeah.
Why does that make you laugh?
Because he was the one that got me into the bodybuilding world. I went to a bodybuilding competition. I had a friend of mine that was competing, and I went there to watch it, but he was the guest poser, and I met him outside of the venue, and we were talking, and he said, so what do you compete in? And I don't compete. And he goes, why don't you compete? You'd be great for a figure. And I said, Branch Warren's telling me that I'd be good for figure competition. I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, you should do it. I'm like, okay. So I did. And then I did not place well because posing was not something that I look now and I see my mistakes. I'm like, gosh, I would have killed it if I at least knew how to pose, but my posing coach wasn't good. But after that, then I started really getting involved with training people to prep for a competition. And then me and a partner ended up doing our own NPC national qualifier bodybuilding competition in Indiana. And so we had 3 years of that. And I just loved, and I became an NPC judge, and I just loved it. And then when I moved to Texas, I didn't know the community very well. And I still had clients that would compete, but it's just, it was my love for a period of time, and now it's not.
Yeah.
I still don't mind training people for it, but it's not a passion of mine anymore.
It's funny how you don't know what you don't know. And
Yeah.
I had no idea that there were posing coaches. I guess I just always thought people watched
So
on
important.
YouTube.
So important. It'd be the difference between last place and first place. Because if you don't know how to highlight and showcase what you've built, you look flat. Or you look like hunched over. And honestly, and then as later on as a judge, it literally does come down to one person holding their shoulders just slightly different. Because you'll have 20 girls on stage for bikini, and I mean, they all look very similar.
Right,
You might have the
right.
few outliers that are like, holy cow, yeah, she's clearly number one. And then you'll have the few that are like, oh, good for her for trying. And so you know where she places. But you have the middle that they look so similar. And it comes down to if their suit doesn't match their skin very well sometimes.
Huh.
I mean, it can be the smallest thing because they will be side by side. There's no difference. But one girl looks happier, she'll get the one ahead of the other one. So if that posing doesn't showcase, I mean, there's like if you're posing for lats, they're standing like this and they're standing like that.
Yep.
One will explode the lats and one shrinks them. And that can be a game changer for you. So the posing coach is so important.
It's funny, too, because when I was in my early 20s, had an Instagram account, posting shirtless pictures all the time. And I would take pictures of my back, and 9 out of 10 times I didn't like how they looked, and I never knew why. Every now and then I would get that shot where I'd be like, oh, everything looks great. And I didn't even know what I did. I was like, is it because I'm here?
Yeah,
so I could see why if you're
huge.
doing that for a show, you would want that feedback.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super important.
What got you into personal training?
I originally went to school for advertising and design, and I still do art. I paint and draw, and I love art. So I originally went to school to be in advertising. I went to school in Chicago, and then my grandfather got sick, and so I moved from Chicago area to Indiana to be with my grandparents, and I met my future husband, future ex-husband also. And he was there, and so I decided to just settle in Indiana. So I left school, so I didn't finish. I was just so close to getting my degree in advertising. And so I was doing advertising. I was on air on a morning show for a while, but I also did the advertising. And I was not into advertising after doing it. I'm like, oh, I guess I don't like this after all. And so I was kind of in a place of not knowing what the hell I wanted to do. And so I kind of did odd jobs trying to figure that out. And then eventually I got married to that guy I was dating when I came into town, and we had kids. And I never was an in shape person, really. I never learned working out and eating healthy and stuff. But then I had kids, and right after I had my first, I was nursing, and it took tons of weight off of me. And so I needed to find out, all right, I really like the way I look, so I want to figure out how to stay like this. And so I started looking into workouts and nutrition and just diving into it, and started really falling in love with it. And I realized you don't need to have diets and this special specific plan. It was just like balancing the right stuff out. And so I would get compliments on my arms or like the shape of my legs, and I started thinking, gosh, I'm really doing good at this. I want to learn a lot more. And I'd have people reaching out to me and telling me how did you do this? What do you recommend for this? So I thought, you know what, I love doing this. I'm good at it. I'm going to start doing this full time. So I went through the program to get certified in that and in the nutrition, and the rest is history. I was good at it, and I'm a kind of a no bullshit kind of person, so people like that. I'm not trying to. I hate sales. I just don't fucking eat that. So they needed that, and it's just like, and also have your cake and eat it too. I mean, if you restrict yourself from everything, you're gonna collapse.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I got really good at it, and so I stuck with it.
It's funny, I got my degree in accounting, and here I am working as a recruiter. Granted, it's for an accounting firm, but now starting a podcast, which I would love to turn into a full-time gig. We'll get into that later. But I think it's funny and interesting and important for people to realize that you don't have to be pigeonholed in that degree. Because I had a moment where I'm working in this accounting firm. It's 2 a.m. in the morning, and I'm working on this Excel spreadsheet in a dark office there are a few other people there, and I just realized like I could care less, and I'm miserable, but I also just spent thousands of dollars and 5 years of my life getting this degree, so I'm supposed to be doing this, and this is where I'm supposed to be working.
It's my favorite
and
topic.
It's like, so speak on that. What would you, if you were my friend and I called you at 2 a.m. and that's what I told you, exactly what I just said, you would respond with?
Then you're not supposed to fucking do it.
There's the no bullshit.
But here's the thing though. Who are we to say an 18-year-old needs to know what they're going to do at 50 years old? Mm-hmm. They don't even know what they're going to do next weekend. Like, it's brain dead. And so, look, what do you want to major in? What do you want to do for the rest of your life? They don't fucking know. And so I've told many people this, you are going to change your career. And if you don't, there's something wrong. So one thing that just keep following, what's your passion at that moment? Follow that. Obviously, if it's a particular person and you're obsessed, that's not what I mean. Don't stalk. But if you're passionate about something, follow it. Because sometimes it's not that, but it's something that leads you to, that will bring you to what you're supposed to do. So I can see very clearly now where I was led with each step of the way, because it brought me to my next step. And I love where I am right now. But if I didn't have the experience of the very first things, I wouldn't have had the second or the third or the fourth that led me to where I am. So we're always a work in progress. Who you are now is not the same as who you were when you were 20. Right. You evolve. And so you're going to have different interests. That's why marriage is really hard to have for a long time, too. It's really hard to keep growing in the exact same trajectory as another person. But the second you think you're stuck with something for the rest of your life, you're going to be so miserable. And I'm not talking about people. This is not that. But you went into accounting because it seemed right. A lot of times people go into those things because their parents or someone else tells them. Mm-hmm. But that's okay. Because if you ended up doing it, it does not mean where you're stuck. But the second you start asking whoever if you call it God or the universe, whatever, that higher consciousness, if you start asking that higher consciousness, hey, what is next? I'm listening. Give me a sign of what I go to next. You'll usually get a sign. And I have been led to each step in my life, and I see why. And it makes perfect sense. So, for instance, with the accounting, I bet if you look back, you can see something that opened your mind to something else. Were you listening to podcasts when you were at work because you were so bored?
No, I listen to a lot of music because of the nature of the work. It's hard to have words in your head and
Oh,
also be
yeah,
thinking
yeah. That makes sense.
about that. But it's funny because I was not necessarily job searching, and a recruiter reached out to me and asked me if I'd be interested in looking at other opportunities. And as we were going through it, she claimed that I didn't have to pay her. And the cynical side of me thought, she's saying this, but I have a feeling that as soon as I sign that job offer, she's going to send me this $500 invoice. So I just called her up one day and said, hey, can you talk to me about what is going on behind the scenes? Why do I not have to pay you anything? Why is this free? And when she told me what recruiters do for a living, and we had a conversation about it, I asked her if I could interview, and she talked to her boss, and they said yeah, and I went in and I interviewed with like 7 people over a 4-hour process, and they gave me a job, and I accepted it, and 2 weeks later there I was. And it's to your point about how the universe is taking you through these steps. I think my time with that accounting firm was so crucial because I didn't realize how immature I was, how disorganized I was, how I procrastinated everything in school, and that wouldn't work now. So I feel like they taught me so much, and I use those skills for the podcast to balance my day job with them. So
Yeah.
I needed that time.
Yeah.
I have no regret about the degree at the time at the accounting firm. All of those things had to happen to get me to right now.
Yeah. And then in accounting degree, how crucial for knowing your own home economics and business economics and all that too. Those are the things that are important, because during that time I was kind of floating around between doing advertising to where I am with coaching. I worked as an assistant accountant, assistant HR, and I learned very valuable skills during that time because I utilize them all now. Like I see, they say the universe is not out to get you, it's out to help you. It's helping you along the way, and you are learning some important, valuable tools throughout your journey that lead you to where you're supposed to be. You just listen and look for the next opportunity that your heart feels led to.
So in thinking of your own evolution, when we first met, you were talking to me about how you were working as a personal trainer, and you started to have a revelation that got you into coaching.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what that revelation was and what that sort of transition looked like?
With personal training and nutrition coaching, it goes so hand in hand with mindset and discipline and accountability, because if your brain's not in the right mindset, you're not going to be successful with your workout program, and vice versa. If you're wanting to get a healthy mindset, but you're not exercising your body, it's not going to work as well. And so they both work very congruently with each other. And so when I would be working with personal training clients and nutrition clients, we would talk about, there's things that are triggering them to eat. There are things that are triggering them to be lazy on the couch. There's things that are causing their bad habits or their binges or all that stuff. A lot of times it comes down to they just got off the phone with their mom and now they're eating a pint of ice cream. Or they got out of a breakup and now they're going to bust their butt in the gym because they want to look really good. A lot of things are tied to an emotional thing. And so they tied together so often that many times with clients, they're like, can we just sit for my training hour and talk? Because I think this will help me more than the workout. And I would. And so we really would unpack a lot of things that were kind of stopping their progression. And then they'd get right back on and get motivated all over again, for lack of, let's not go back to the motivation, but they're feeling excited about their motivation. And so they'd get right back into their regimen. And so I actually, and I'm now 45, I don't want to be standing all day, every day for my work. And with coaching, I'm able to be at home and also work on that other business that we will not speak a ton about. But I can be at home to work on that stuff at the same time as hopping on a call for an hour with a client on video and go over the things they're dealing with and everything that get them to their goals. And I'm starting to really like that a lot. I do enjoy my personal training clients, but I feel more fulfilled in my spirit with the life coaching clients, where we actually just dig into the mindset and the spirit and kind of get them out of their mind funk. And I do provide nutrition and exercise plans to my life coaching clients as well. So they're getting their mind and body regimen put together.
Yeah. I had another personal trainer on a couple days ago, and she said that she feels like the 3 pillars of a healthy human it's what you just said. It's the fitness, it's the mindset, and it's the working out. Mm-hmm. And if one of those is, or not even the working out, whatever it is,
some sort
walking,
of form of
Zumba,
exercise,
you are moving your body. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about, it's so true. You know, if your diet is absolute trash, that's going to affect your mental, because then you'll see it on your body, and then you might even go to the gym less because you're embarrassed of how you look. And
yeah. And then you're dating the creepy neighbor.
Right. A thought I had while you were talking is, does there seem to be a common theme in what people are going through mentally right now, or is everyone uniquely
limited
different?
Limited
mindset.
Oh my gosh. I was at an event with my mom the other day, and we were talking about something to making money, and she goes, "Oh, I'm too old for that." And I said, I was like, "Oh my gosh, Mom, stop with that shit." She's like, "What?" I said, "Thank God I didn't listen to you with all your, you can't do this, can't do that, because, oh my gosh, Mom, stop." She's in her 60s. I'm like, you have 20, 30, who knows how many more years. 30 years from now, you're going to be like, "Oh, I guess I did have some token time." I mean, the limited mindset people have is astounding to me. It just amazes me the amount of "I can't do that" people have. And it comes from either, oh gosh, there's so many different places, their parents, their culture, an ex, a narcissistic family member that told them they couldn't amount to anything, the news, the government, everybody saying, "Oh, you can't do this because of this." You may have had a teacher or a professor that said, "Oh, you'll never do this because of this." There might have been a past coach. "You can't do this because of this." Erase that shit. I mean, just imagine Elon Musk at 5 years old being told, like, "Oh, you're just never going to do anything." And here he is with the SpaceX. I mean, the potential is limitless if your mind goes limitless. I mean, obviously, there are physical limitations. I'm not going to fly without an airplane off of a bridge. But,
right.
But I mean, honestly, it's ridiculous the amount of limits we put on ourselves. And that is overwhelmingly the biggest issue, or people's lack of respect for themselves. I have people that are in a rut that they just refuse to think that they're valuable enough to get up off the couch and just walk. They don't think that their value in this world could make an impact. And it's like, holy cow. Remember, I mean, I don't know if you ever heard the story of Oprah Winfrey. Whether you're a fan of her or not, that doesn't matter. But she's inspired a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I mean, she was molested and raped and treated like trash. And she came from the Black community, who a lot of times they're being told that, well, you'll never get out of this area, or because of your race, there's certain things, and it's all bullshit. She's one of the wealthiest people on the planet now. If she listened to all the "you can'ts" or "you wouldn't be able to's," where would she have been? Hmm. It's amazing how much potential people have, and they have no clue. And I hope I've instilled that in my kids enough. I mean, my daughter wants to be a teacher. I think that's fantastic, but I don't want her to limit herself to just going through the everyday. I want her to know that she can inspire every single person in her class to change the world. You know what I mean? Your potential doesn't have to be huge scale on the international circuit, but just to think I'm just this is a load of bullshit.
I think sometimes a lot of us, we don't realize we're in a rut.
Yeah.
Because the life we're living isn't necessarily bad. You wake up, you get the kids ready, you drop them off at school, you go to your day job, you go to the gym, you hit the grocery store. Like Groundhog Day. None of that I just described is bad.
No.
Until you realize you have an epiphany of like, oh, I'm pretty bored.
Yeah.
Or I'm depressed, or I'm...
People don't pay attention to the way they feel very often, though.
Yeah.
They think, oh, I'm supposed to feel this way. I'm supposed to feel bored. I'm supposed to feel tired. No, have some joy. I mean, working as a cashier at Walmart and then having 2 kids, and I mean, that's not to say that's not your purpose, because you might be serving a purpose in a completely different capacity than your job. However, if there's a part of your life that you are miserable, rewrite your fucking story.
Yeah.
Because our story is 100% our story because we have taken the next step to make it our story. Where you are at this very moment is what you have written the years prior. Where you will be in 10 years starts today. What are you writing for now? Like, if you're going to do the exact same things, you'll be in the exact same place.
Yeah.
So if you want something greater, just start writing that story. Start doing those actions you think that person in the future would do. Eventually, you'll be that person in the future that you wanted to be. You just do this stuff. It's rewriting your story. You're the only person that can write it.
Yeah. I heard Les Brown. Do you know who that is? He said in an interview, in order to become someone that you've never been, you have to do something that you've never done.
Yeah.
I love that. It just goes back to, you just have to start acting. Take a step towards it. You don't have to figure out the whole darn thing today, but what can you change? Would you say that was there a past Heather that had that limited mindset before you started putting your business into place?
I think I still do, you know? I mean, I think it's, as humans, it's hard not to. I think a lot of times we don't see them as limited mindset, right? Because I remember when I first had that business idea, I met with a software program company, and they told me what it would cost. And so I kind of chalked it up to, well, I guess I'm never going to get that money, and I went on with my life. I don't know what made me think I could never get that money to fund it. I just shut myself down because I think I lived in a somewhat poverty mindset of, oh, I'll never have access to that money. Hindsight, I'm like, gosh, that was stupid. But so for 10 years, I just let this go away in my mind. I thought, oh, I guess that's something that will never happen. But I'd hear about a commercial would come on like, oh, now this new program that allows you to do this. And every time I'd hear the start of that, my heart would drop. For 10 years, every time I heard of something new that came out, my heart would drop because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, is this it? Is this it? Somebody did it. Somebody did it. And I would dread hearing it. And I thought, for 10 years, I felt that dread of somebody did it already. And I'm thinking, why am I feeling that? That's a nagging from my heart. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. And so finally, I have a good friend of mine who's also acts as like a spiritual advisor to me, and she's very, very intuitive and insightful. And she said, what do you listen to in the mornings? And I said, and this was a few years back, I said, well, true crime. And she's like, yeah, that's what I thought. There's something you need to stop listening to that. And I said, okay. She says, you're supposed to be listening to something different in the mornings. I want you to find something that's going to shift your mindset because there's something about to change. I'm like, ooh, okay. And so I started listening. Actually, the very first podcast I started listening to was Rob Dial, Mindset Mentor, here in Austin. And all of a sudden, I don't even know the episode, but it clicked. He said something that was, there's something that's been nagging you for a long time that you want to do. I'm like, fuck, okay. Shit. I hear you, universe. I hear you, God. You're telling me. So I started doing a deep dive into it. And again, I reached out to somebody else and they searched and they're like, this does not exist yet still. I'm like, okay, here we go. And so it's been a little while and I've been hammering away at it. And during that process, I thought it was going to be one thing, that thing for 10 years that I've had in my mind. And in the process of this, it completely shifted to something much bigger. The process I was using to create this system, I was speaking with a patent attorney, and I said, I want to patent this program. And he said, you really need to dig into it deeper. What is the process in which it happens, though? To me, that sounded like Greek. And so he tried to explain how to go about it. It's this goes to this goes to this. And so I would look online at like the Airbnb patent and all the Uber patent and all those things. And I'm like, okay, it's like the wireframing. And so I tried to create that on Canva. I made probably 40 different pictures of what each page of this program would look like. I did journey mapping. I did all of the things. And I've met with people involved in the tech community, and they're like, this is worth a lot of money. And so I have 2 patents that are in the process of being completed. I still will be I'm kind of working out the business plan a little bit more, and it almost seems surreal to me that in part of it, I'm doing the financial projections, and I'm like, how is this not being done already? The potential for the amount is insane. If even just based on 1% of just this country implementing this is astounding to me. And I'm thinking, gosh, why didn't I do this? But you know what, though? It's happening at the time it needs to happen.
Yeah.
And I trust that. I have faith in it. And then, I mean, literally, I could tell you all the times that things will happen that show me that I'm on the right path. And so I believe in it 100%. I'm doing all of the things like the vision board and visualizations every morning and night. As many books as I can get and put into practice. Some things like the Think and Grow Rich that you've read. There's a quote in it, and it's at the beginning that how far are you in it?
I believe chapter 4.
Okay.
My next chapter is imagination.
Okay, so you've gotten to this part because I think this is maybe chapter 2.
Okay.
Where Barnes wanted to work for Edison.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it said that, so Barnes had the goal of working for him, and it said, but it came in a completely different form than Barnes had expected. And that's the tricky thing about opportunity. It has a sly way of coming in by the back door and disguised as misfortune, which is why so many people fail to recognize opportunity. Yeah. And our lives pivot, or they change, or they move in different directions, and so many people give up and quit because they thought, oh, that didn't work out. But it's just working out in a different way. Like with a job that you hate. Like, oh, I put so much money and time into this, and it's now I'm getting fired. Or are you? It's an opportunity. Like there's something that's about to happen. And we give up when something doesn't go our way, when in actuality, there's only very few people at the very, very top because they're the ones willing to keep going past the next step. Past all those blocked doors, they're pounding those doors down. They're finding the back door. There's another good book, The Third Door, that talks about that. There's a part of the book where he says, it's Alex, I'm going to butcher his last name, Banyan, something like that. The Third Door. It's a great book. And so Alex is his first name. Anyways, he says how, you go into a nightclub and there's the front door, which everybody goes to, and the line goes down the block. Then there's the side door, which is like the VIP entrance for the people who were born into wealth, and like the Kardashians and the Hiltons. They're getting in that side door, the VIP door. But there's that third door in the back. It's the kitchen door that the cooks will come out real quickly to throw out the garbage and walk back in. Nobody's going to that door. And so you sneak in around there, and when that door opens, you get in there real quick. I mean, you find those sneaky ways of getting into opportunities, and it happens. Yeah. And it's just a really neat thing to look at. That's why there's not many people up there. A lot of people aren't willing. If you are taking a trip to New Orleans, and you put in Google Maps or Waze or whatever that you want to go to New Orleans, you pretty much know what highways you want to take. Yep. But the map, all of a sudden, it updates your route. And it says, oh, now you can't go down this highway. Now you were taking a left to detour. Do we turn around and drive back to Austin?
Never.
No, we follow the new direction. Because we assume there's a traffic accident up there, or there's the road caved in, or there is a shootout. Who knows? There's something happened up there.
Yep.
We don't care. We don't ask questions, and we don't cry about it. We just take the new route. And then it reroutes us again, because maybe now it's rush hour on that road, and so it takes us on a side road. We don't question it. We keep taking the new routes, but in our own life, we give up so quick. We have dreams and goals, and the route isn't going to be perfect. It's going to take some winds. It's going to turn down other ways, but you just keep going. And you'll find new ways of getting there. You might have to take a boat partway through it. You might have to ride a bike then that last part, but you're still going to get there. It's just going to be more difficult, and that's why very few people end up at the end.
Why do you think that we're able to get rerouted in the car and we get there? And for something that might be meaningless. It reroutes me on the way to the gym. I'm determined. And a workout, if I said, okay, I'm going to give up because this road is closed. It's going to take me 20 minutes extra. It's one workout, no big deal. But I don't turn around. I keep going.
Because we trust computers more than we trust our own hearts.
How do we learn to trust ourselves?
Practice. This is practice. There's like that, it's a routine of it. A lot of this comes down to affirmations too, just reminding yourself, you got this, you know what you're doing. And then you get to where you've, this sounds stupid, brainwashed yourself into believing in yourself, you know what I mean? Getting those words through the book, like Think and Grow Rich. There's a lot of great pieces of advice in there, and then over and over, just listening. You said you listen to Ed Milet. Mm-hmm. I don't listen to music ever. I'm listening to podcasts or audiobooks. I'm just absorbing as much positive feedback into my brain as possible, that there's no room for that negative thought. And so I'll have clients even coming in to complain about politics or something, and I'm like, I want to be in a good space, and let's not talk about that. And so I reroute the conversation, because I'm on this happy route of success and positive energy, and literally I will find my energy shift if we start going into conversations. So like politics, I can't be in there. I can't be in that space. I don't listen to news. I don't watch the news. I don't like news online. I can't do it. It fucks with my energy.
Yeah. You said...
Did I answer your question? I kind of rambled on there. Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Since we're talking about Think and Grow Rich, I wanted to read you something that I wrote down.
Okay.
And it brought me back to my days of being in school.
Okay.
And it's funny because with this podcast too, 24 days in, it seems that based off of comments I'm seeing on social media, people that have messaged me directly, I even had someone random just send me a message on LinkedIn that just warmed my heart. The demographic, I think, is going to be younger than I expected it to. It seems to be mostly be people between the ages of like 12 to 26. So this is partly I wanted to read this for them. I'm reading Think and Grow Rich, and it was in chapter 1, the introductory chapter, talking about how it's so easy to quit, to give up. And I got brought back to my days in high school. And I just wrote down, what if every time someone made fun of me in school, instead of crying at the loss of a prospective friend, isolating myself to my bedroom in fear of the world, or letting my thoughts spiral down a dark path wondering what's wrong with me, I instead thought, this is a gift. I'm not supposed to be a part of their life, nor them part of mine. Now that we have that settled, we both can go spend more time and energy finding the people who we are supposed to be in our community. With healthy thinking, the problem solved immediately. We can move on to the next friendship, task, event, whatever the thing might be. Unhealthy thinking is, I'm going to delay in moving on because I'm stuck in this depression, anxiety, hopelessness, fear, or hurt ego. What are your thoughts around that?
Actually, have you read the book, The Four Agreements?
Yes.
Okay. I think that answers that one really well. It's Don Miguel Ruiz. I remember his name. But actually, and I was listening to a podcast this morning about this, everything is an illusion in this world. It's based on our own perceptions of what happens around us. The only fact is, like, what they were saying was, like, my hand's on this table, or there's a microphone in front of me, the concrete things. But anything about he hates me, that's your perception of that. What that comes from typically is anybody who's mistreating you, that problem has nothing to do with you. It's the way they've manifested their life and where it's leading them in their space, how it affects you. It has nothing to do with you. So, like the people that bully a kid, those kids are trying to put that pain and energy that maybe an abusive parent or something put on them, they're trying to displace it off themselves and put it on someone else. As a young kid, it's so hard to get that across to them because it still hurts. That's usually where it comes from. It's so, is there a way to accurately say to a kid, here's how to look at it? And the kid actually will feel that. We're so young. But hopefully at home, they're getting that nurturing, loving relationship. But man, how adults fucked up their kids, huh?
Yeah.
The thing that happens along the way, though, is it can be you, it can be another adult that comes along and gives them just that little glimmer of hope. And then they start seeing that little crack in the door open of possibility. You don't know when you can be that person for someone. Like I mentioned Oprah Winfrey before, she said there was a teacher when she was little that said, you're as pretty as a pup. And she remembered that to this day. It was just a little bit of a confidence boost for her to keep going. I mean, she was little and being made fun of and hurt. So you don't know when your simple words are going to have an impact. And actually, my husband and I, with building this company, we're building something that will go into schools to talk to kids about, like, hope that they have in themselves and kind of reframing the victims they've become in life. But I'm not a child psychologist, so I wouldn't even know how to get across the kids that are in that situation. But eventually, if the right people come into their lives, they help them see that either you're a result of that abuse or that mistreatment, and then you allow that abuse and mistreatment to continue to mistreat you throughout your life, or people call it forgiveness. I think that's not a good word because people confuse that for saying what you did was okay. But by releasing it and saying you will no longer abuse and hold me in this place, you can move on from it and allow whatever happened to you during that time of abuse to actually use that to rewrite your story and empower you to help others that are in that situation. They say a best idea of what you should do or who you are is who you needed when you needed them. Like, when you were going through a tough time, who was it you needed? That's probably who you're now equipped to be. So somebody who's gone through child abuse and who you would have want to reach out to you now as an adult, that's who you are well equipped to be now for others. But it takes us who just see a little kid walking by himself, like, well, no, we probably shouldn't approach little kids when they're walking by. That was not a good example.
You know what?
But to stand in for, like, to stand up for somebody when you see them that are sad, just smile and say hi to the stranger. You don't know when you're that one little, wait a second, there might still be a little bit of hope. But that's why I like doing this, because I actually can say what I want to these people, because they come out and they reach out to me to talk, and then I help them look at it differently.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes I go on and on and on tangents.
They're beautiful tangents. And then your headphones are falling off, and microphones are falling over.
Oh, I'm a hot mess today.
I do remember there is a young man. I didn't know how old he is. I could have guessed, but he ends up he was 18. But we went to the same gym, and he always just appeared very angry. His fists were clenched, usually looking down, and there is some sort of, I feel like I have a sixth sense for people. All of us do. I don't think it's me. Maybe I'm just more in tune to mine.
I have more empathy.
Maybe it's empathy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so one day he's on a cable machine and he's only using one side of it. Other side was open. I want to do triceps, so I can flex in the mirror as we were talking about. And so I walked up to him, asked him if he was using it. He said no. Threw the rope on. I'm doing my workout. He's doing his. And I forget what I said, but I just, I asked him about something, and we chatted for 2 or 3 minutes, and ended up exchanging names and shook hands, parted ways. But then after that, every time I saw him, I could greet him, say hi. And as over the course of the next several months, I started being able to chip away at the ice to see if my assumption about is he angry or not true. And I would, every time after I drove home, and I would be thinking about, like, how do you get so upset at 16 or 17? And I remember thinking on my own experiences as a 17-year-old, being a closeted gay kid, going to a Christian school, being made fun of, not being able to admit the truth because I would be so afraid of the fallout if I did.
Yeah.
And all of that was going on. And as I got close to my senior year, one of the few friends I did have was driving his motorcycle one night. Car blew through a stop sign, killed him on sight. And I started to realize, like, you can be 17 and have a lot to be stressed out about. And it turns out this young man was very much in the same boat, and we're not in contact with each other anymore. He moved out of California, so did I. I'm now in Texas. But I think that you do bring up a great point of just, that I thought about when you're like, don't approach kids, like, just be aware of your surroundings, because I hope that by even just being able to be an outlet where he could vent to, maybe he never had that, and then he did, and he was able to get some of those problems out in the air, and hopefully that was a weight off his shoulders, and now maybe he's gone to someone else. Maybe he sought out counseling or opened a door where he realized, like, I don't have to keep all this inside. But I love what you said about, whoever it is you needed, be that.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's powerful.
Yeah, and I think a good example, because I was always, my parents would be like, oh yeah, this is true. I was that pain in the ass little kid that liked to push the envelope and like, don't touch the plate, it's hot, watch me touch it type of thing. And so I was always just very rebellious, and through high school I definitely rebelled, and I thank God I didn't have kids like me. I mean, I deserved hell as a parent, but I didn't. I got really good kids, but I was an asshole as a kid. I remember in my 20s, and I shed the asshole, but I still was very, like, would have times where I wouldn't lose my shit, but it wasn't as chill. I was uptight about things, and some people are, if they listen to me, they're like, hello. Still are sometimes. But I met this woman I worked for, and she was like my personality, but 30 years advanced. And she was such a help to me, because she would teach me just tools that when when you see red, I was the kind of person that if I was in an argument with somebody, I'd come up with the words that would just cut them right at the core. Like, what would be the worst thing to say? I'm going to fucking say it just to shut them up. And she really talked me through that. And she said, when you see red, here's what you need to do. And she just kind of walked me through okay, calm down. Now think about this. And I don't know where I would be without her. I mean, she knew what I was going through. She wasn't just, my gosh, calm down. I mean, she recognized it, and she was that person who I needed to kind of, okay, I can get my shit together a little bit here. She gets me. And it's so hard to get advice from somebody who doesn't get you.
Yeah.
When they understand you, you're like, okay, I can trust what they have to say. And she was who I needed at that point. And I want to be that for other kids that feel like they're lost. I say kids because I do have some teenagers that I coach, but even adults that just don't feel like they have a purpose. It's like, I get it. You're just not where you're supposed to be. Let's reshift it. Start falling in love with yourself. Because the second you start having a little bit of confidence, or not even confidence, but respect for who you are, then things start looking a little different. It's just a little step before you get to the next step, that leads you to a really abundant life. But it takes those first little steps of just feeling listened to. And then you start to like yourself.
Yeah.
And then it goes from there. But yeah, being who you want, who you need.
If you don't love yourself, what's one of those first steps that you can take?
Just every morning, look in the mirror and say, I love you. It's going to suck because you really don't want to say it to yourself. It's like looking at your enemy and saying, I love you. It's hard to do. It ends up working. I remember I had one client do this. This was a client in the gym. She had been raped by her ex-husband several times, and then she took a dance class, and that dance instructor raped her. She was just victimized over and over. Her ex-husband was very abusive to her. She was overweight. She didn't take care of herself. She just hated herself. And I said, I just want you every morning to just say, God, show me what you love about me. And then I said, over time, you're going to start seeing those things that are lovable about you. And it was probably 2 months later, and we were just talking about something else, and she goes, it happened. And I said, what? What happened? I didn't know what she was talking about. She goes, I finally actually think I love myself. And I just started crying. I'm like, oh my gosh. You tell somebody over and over that you love them, eventually they're going to believe you. Say it to yourself. You just look in the mirror and just say, I love you. I think Mel Robbins, her high five habit, where you high five the mirror, it feels so against everything to just high five your mirror in the morning. But it's never attached to a negative.
Right.
You never high five somebody in a bad situation. It's always like, yeah. So she said, high five yourself in the morning. It feels so against your soul to just high five yourself because it's attached to happy. But eventually you're going to start liking that feeling of looking at yourself. But I think it's the same thing with just telling yourself, look in the mirror and say, I love you. It's going to feel so foreign. But eventually it's going to start tearing it down a little bit. And then you're going to start actually believing that you love yourself. You'll start feeling it.
Yeah. When we met, I even told you that I had been thinking about starting a podcast for years. Mm-hmm. and I never said it out loud. And then I just started saying it. I just tell people, the time I could. And I think the very first time I probably said it was July or August of last summer. Mm-hmm. And not even a year later,
boom,
here we are, episode 18 or whatever it is. And I only bring that up as just something tangible.
For sure.
For people who are like, what Heather just said is complete bullshit. Tell me I love myself in the mirror every morning. Try it.
If you hate yourself, just freaking try it.
It takes 3 seconds. You can close your door so your roommates or your parents don't hear you.
Just try it.
What's it going to hurt? It's not going to hurt anything.
No. And the fact that you don't even want to do that shows that you probably need to do that even more. And do you have a goal person that you want to interview one day?
I do.
Who?
Peter Dinklage.
I love him.
I don't even know why. There's just something about his energy I don't get get from other actors or actresses. He's so cool. And I don't really even know him from anything but Game of Thrones and the one other movie he did, a comedy where he plays like he's the son to the lady and they're like part of a mob and someone fucks with her and she's in the retirement home.
Yes. I know which one.
A Simple Favor?
I forget. I don't even know if I remember the name of it. I'm trying to remember the main character. Oh, gosh.
It's that lady, which is not helpful at all. She has the blonde hair from Gone Girl. She's Ben Affleck's wife in Gone Girl. I'm pretty sure that's the actress.
Oh, my gosh. I remember literally seeing it. Doesn't she end up... She dies at the end, right?
I think so, yeah.
Not his mom.
Not his mom.
But the lady who runs the nursing home people.
Retirement homes.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, I just spoiled that one for anybody who hasn't watched. But I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Peter Dinklage would be one. I think he's awesome. He'd be fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He. So why don't I see any pictures of him up?
I don't know.
Maybe put a little sticker with his face on here, and when you're talking into your microphone, you see a picture of him, and it becomes more and more real.
Okay.
Vision board. I actually had one vision board thing come true within a month of putting it on my vision board once.
Can you talk about it?
Yeah. I had I'd put my vision board together. I have 1 billion in 2030 written at the top of the vision board. I now think that's going to be more. But then I have multiple pictures up there. I have like a dream kitchen, a really cool bathroom that has a waterfall in it, and then vacations I want. And one of them is a private island. I'm like, vacation on a private island. That was one of them. And then a month later, one of my clients, who is also one of my best friends, she said, oh, hey, my husband and I, we put a bid in at an auction for a vacation, and he won. And so we're going to have a private island in Belize, and we want you to come with us. And I was like, hell yes. So I already got one of those done. So we went in February. And it was amazing.
All right, what would be, if I wanted to create a vision board of a few different goals, one of my biggest goals for this podcast is that 5 years from now, whatever the time is, I get an email and it says, hey, David, my name is Jane. I want to come on your podcast. I'll be in Austin these dates. Would that be okay? I say, yes. Jane comes on the podcast and she says, 5 years ago, I listened to your episode with Heather Bennet. I was a victim of rape. I hated myself. It changed my life. And I am alive and thriving and love myself and doing, all these things because Heather came on the show. How would I put that into a picture?
Type up an email, mock email, and then print it up, put it up there. I like that.
As soon as I said it, that thought hit my head. That's so funny. That's why we need to talk about things.
Yes.
Sometimes you find the solutions by just sitting down with someone and getting the words out there.
Oh, and I've told people too, they don't have the answer to something. I'm like, you actually have the answer to almost everything. Was it Einstein that said that energy has always existed? All the thoughts and things that people have created and come up with, there's very few new thoughts. They're all existing. And so we have them already. They're just at our disposal. That most of the time the answer is already in us. That writing into a journal, this is one of the biggest habits I can recommend to people. Writing your thoughts in a journal. It can be a simple question. Where can I come up with the energy to do this? You just write. Sometimes getting the question skims off the top, right in your mind, right off the bat, and then all of a sudden now the answers are right below. So keep writing. Just, why can't I get this done? All of a sudden, my pen will keep writing because I'll have the answer just right after it.
Where can I come up with the money for my idea?
Start writing that down. Or for my idea?
For your idea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, and the answers are there, and and then not only are the answers there in my head, it's that, and not even literally like, oh, Bob from this place, not that, but it will say, reach out to this organization, look online for this, and oh, ask so and so about this, and you know the answers pretty much in your head. Mm-hmm. It's just that the question is on the top, and you just keep rolling the question over and over in your head. Get it out on paper, and then you'll have the answer that will come right after it. I mean, that works for me typically almost all the time.
I'm going to combine two ideas that you've brought up. One of my prior guests is a 20-year-old business owner. He dropped out of school to what we were talking about earlier. I should be going to school because I'm supposed to. He dropped out of school in his first semester and said, this is bullshit. Worked odd jobs while figuring out some things around the idea so he could act on it. So he was acting. He was figuring out, how do I now put this idea into legs so it can move forward? So he worked odd jobs to pay the rent and whatnot. And now his business is up and running. He's working full time, making a decent amount of money. So proud of him. One thing he said, though, was that he does not read books, any books. I don't read because I want all of my ideas to be my original ideas. I don't want to read about Heather's success. I would rather make the mistake and figure it out for myself, which I thought that's a very interesting answer. I wasn't expecting that when he said I don't read.
Almost every other successful person typically wouldn't agree, but hey, if it works for him.
I was going to say,
I'm not against other people's way of getting successful. He's doing something.
If you want to fail, because that's essentially what he said is I want to fail and figure it out.
Yeah.
If he was sitting here with us, would you give him any advice or give any rebuttal to that?
If he needed advice, I would, but I wouldn't. I never argue with somebody else's way of doing something. I know what has worked for the people that I work with, and I know what happens for me, and I know what happens for the most of the world out there. It doesn't always work for everybody.
Right.
I know my faith. That doesn't mean it's everybody else's faith. I know my beliefs in certain things. It doesn't mean it's other people's beliefs. Because what the placebo pill is one of the most powerful pills in the world, and it's a sugar pill. So if he has told himself, I don't do this because of these things, and these things are the things that make me successful, he's going to be successful doing those things. He's told himself, he's reinforced that stuff. But if he said, I refuse to do that because I can't do it anyway, then he wouldn't be able to do it. I mean, we reinforce what we're going to be able to do. We reinforce it. So he's reinforcing that that's the way it works for him. If it works for him, great. I'm not going to tell him that it doesn't work for him because it's bullshit. It does.
Yeah.
And I mean, lifting, like weightlifting and trying to lift heavy weights, that doesn't work for everybody. I think it's phenomenal and it works for a lot of people, most people, and even people in yoga it might work really well for. But if it doesn't work well for their soul, it doesn't work for them. So whatever gets you to the next step in a way that you can be proud of, there you go.
Yeah.
But I go by what most successful people say, and for years they've been giving that same advice over and over. I don't really feel like reinventing the wheel of what is really, really successful practice. So it works for me. I've seen tremendous changes in my life based on those principles. But I would bet like I said, all energy exists, all knowledge exists. He's learned those things. You hear those things. You see those things. He's implemented a lot of what he knows based on what's been out there. He just hasn't applied it specifically to certain things.
Right.
So you can't get anywhere without believing in it. Those are important practices.
Yeah.
Like, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Henry Ford?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to make an assumption that between personal training, coaching, the app, being a parent, you're a relatively busy person. You're probably not sitting around twiddling your thumbs thinking, what should I do with my next hour?
Right.
But as part of your daily or weekly habits, you do enjoy meditating, correct?
Yeah, I do. I didn't really implement it until kind of in the last year or so, because I am a Virgo, and we overthink the fuck out of everything. And so meditation was always so hard for me because my mind's constantly going. And so, not to say people aren't constantly thinking, but I mean like overthinking to an ill amount. And so meditation was always hard for me, I thought, because I would sit there and I couldn't shut myself up. And the second I would think of one thing or try to not think of something, like all of a sudden I see butts in my head. I mean, it's like, like anything you think you cannot, like you be in church or something, and all of a sudden you see a penis in your head. You're like, dang it! You know what I'm talking about? It's like
Yes.
the worst things at the worst time pop in your head.
So
you know what I'm
funny.
talking about?
Yeah.
And so it's like, gosh, dang it! Don't think about that. And then you think about it more. I was horrible at it, so I just like, fuck it. I'm not meditating. You're like, totally, I've thought that. So I got to where I heard people saying, it's just, the second the thought comes into your head that you don't want, just gently excuse it out. Just, no, not right now. Rob Dial had suggested writing down every thought that pops in your head. Just keep with your eyes closed and just jot that thought down, and then it's cathartic to your mind. It's gone. You've put it out on paper. It doesn't need to keep rolling around in your head. You can do that before bed. I do that before bed. If there's things on my mind, I have to write them down because then they're out of my head. I don't have to keep rolling the question over and over in my head.
It's funny you say that because I don't even know who the person is that you just referenced, but if I'm doing my day job and I think about the podcast, I tell myself that's not priority, and I have my it's not a journal, but for lack of better terms, it's my podcast journal, and I'll just flip to the and write down, reach out to Heather and get her scheduled, and then it's gone. I can go back to my job.
Yep, I have it in my phone, in my notebook on my phone. I have a thought, I have to put it down there, otherwise I can't get past it. So I do those things. I remind myself, nope, back to center. And I have to have my room dark. And I actually have one of those eye cover things. Yep. I burn some Palo Santo because the smell is it's supposed to clear energy. And I just lay in a silent room, or I'll play binaural beats, focus, or bring on a higher energy or something like that on YouTube. And I'll just listen to that. And I've gotten better at clearing my mind and just letting things move. My intuition's gotten way better. I can find things in my mind. I have sometimes friends reach out to me like, hey, I can't find something. Can you help me find it? So I'll go into my head. I can find things usually. People call it psychic. I think we all have intuition, but we just don't know how to tap into it. Yeah. So my intuitive ability has really come back a million times over. I'm feeling things that need to be said, and all of a sudden I'll say something. People are like, that's what I was just thinking. So that's gotten better by just that silence. And it's just 10 minutes. Sometimes that's all I need. Sometimes actually stretching helps. Like I'll do like yoga, but I'll do like pigeon pose and just lay into a pigeon pose for a while and just practice my breaths, and practicing the counts for the breaths will actually help me to get my mind off other things. But I'm still trying to learn it. Right. I'm not a pro.
I think for anyone, that 10 minutes of just getting away from everything, even if you don't, you're like, oh, the intuition thing or even if you, that sounds nice, even just right now, at some point today to take 10 minutes and close the blinds, lay just down, breathe. Put on some soft music and breathe. It sounds really relaxing.
I actually made it a goal for myself to never miss a day, 10 minutes every single day. And I try to do it before I have clients. I do it in the morning before I have morning clients. I'm at the gym Monday through Thursdays, the first half of the day, and then the last half of the day, a couple of those days I'll do life coaching and some on Friday. But whatever else is left, I work on that program. But before my life coach clients and before my personal training clients, I will spend 10 minutes in stretching and just kind of clearing my mind, because I want to be able to hear the things I need to hear in order to help them. And if I'm thinking about things that I need to remember to do, or, I need to pay a bill, or I'm not going to hear what I need to hear for them. And I want to be there for them. I want to be able to glean an energy off of them that they need to get help with something, or I just want to be able to help them and be in that energy with them. I guess raise my empathy during that time with them so I can really hear what I need to hear for them. And I say a prayer for my clients before I go into sessions, that they feel peace, that they're able to feel comfortable talking to me, and that they find some clarity that they need for the day, and that I have the words that they need to hear. I go into every session mindful. And so that meditation time helps me to do that because I'm clearing my mind of the stuff that's cluttering it. I'm getting rid of that. It's like meditation's kind of like spring cleaning your brain for 10 minutes. It just kind of clears you of that, like the things that were frustrating you, the red lights you got, or the guy that cut you off. You're just clearing all that out, so then you're open to the good things.
You mentioned that you try to do it 7 days a week. So let's say you miss today. You should clearly mentally flog yourself for missing a day. Right?
Yeah, honestly, I don't even think about it. I missed today. I'm like, oh well.
That's good.
I don't give a shit. Like, whoops, I'm a human, I guess. Like,
Get
that's
on track the next day.
Yeah, I have so many people. I mean, you're in wellness and fitness. You get what I'm saying when I say people will totally beat themselves up and eat shit for the whole weekend if they've messed up one of the one meal. All of a sudden, they're like, fuck it, and then they eat terrible.
Pound of M&Ms, here we come.
Yeah, yep. And it's like punishing themselves. But it's. I've told clients, I'm like, you mess up, who fucking cares? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. Just get back on it the next meal. No big deal. And they're like, oh, okay. And it's like, geez, I had a piece of chocolate cake last night. I get it. I did. Literally, I did. Oh, and I had frozen pizza also. And a glass of wine.
You're going to do it.
Because I didn't, and you know what? I don't give a shit.
I
felt like it.
I eat 3 or 4 cinnamon rolls a year, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love those couple of moments. They're so good.
Yeah. There's the times that you're like, you know what? I'm going to be an asshole today. Okay. And so it's like resting when you're supposed to go to the gym. I tell clients that too. Like, they're like, oh, I didn't work out. So then this, and I'm like, okay, if you're going to rest, don't feel guilty about it. Mm-hmm. Rest. Mm-hmm. If you feel guilty, then get the fuck up off your couch and do something. It's like, do one or the other. If you're going to rest, do it. If you're going to work out, do it. Don't do that in between where you're beating yourself up while on the couch trying to rest. If you can't stop beating yourself up, then get your ass up. Yeah. If you're going to sit on the couch, shut the hell up and just enjoy it. So then when the next day comes, you actually felt like you rested the day before. And then you'll feel more ready to hit the ground running. Yeah. But if you felt guilty the day before, guess what you're going to feel the next day? Guilty and in the couch again. So just enjoy the rest, and then the next day you'll be fine. Yeah. But beating yourself up doesn't ever help anybody.
I won't say who it was, but I was at the gym the other day, and I see one of my friends in there, and I walked up to him, and he just looked distraught, sort of, and asked him how he was doing. He says, not good. I said, why not? And he said, well, I went into some day drinking today. Had a whole glass of gin and juice and 5 beers afterwards.
Gin and juice.
And I felt so bad afterwards that I came here, but now I'm having a terrible workout because I'm still buzzed and I took some pre-workout. I'm just like,
oh my gosh.
Go home.
I would be lying if I said I didn't go to the gym with a little bit of a buzz at one point or another in my life.
I've done it a few times too. Yeah.
Like, oh, this wasn't a good idea. No. I mean, I applaud him trying to make the best of the day. Like, well, I guess I should work out now. Right. Oh my gosh, bless his heart.
I know. It was, I don't know why he just came to mind, but something about when you were saying, just go rest. Like, he should have just gone and rested.
Go rest.
Like, just accept the fact that you drank and now go take a nap, maybe take a hot shower or a cold shower. I don't know.
Oh, I had cleared out the whole day. I think it was last week. I had cleared out a whole day, and I had such a plan of so many things I wanted to do. And I had a cigar. And that's all I did all day. I just had a cigar. I did do more because I felt weirdly in my head. I didn't want to fucking do anything. I was just in a weird funk in my head. And so I thought, all right, today's a mental day. I think I just need to like clear out my brain. And having a cigar probably wasn't the way to do it. But I wanted a fucking cigar, so I had one. And it was a really good one. It was a Cuban. It's a really good one. It was my favorite one. But I enjoyed it, and I relaxed. And I journaled like 5 pages, 6 pages. I kept journaling. And then I have a journal. Oh, this is a good piece of advice for parents. I have a journal specifically for my kids. And so, God forbid anything happens to me anytime soon or to my kids, I have a journal that I write my thoughts, my love, my hopes, my dreams for them, my encouragement, advice, all of that stuff. I have a journal for them, and I don't hide it because I don't want them to have to look for it when I pass away and then they see all the things I said. Because what if they go first? God forbid, but what if they go first? I always want my words to always be available to them if I'm not. So if I'm not home for that moment and they see that journal, they can open it up and see the things I've written to them at that moment at any time they want. It might be something I'm thinking of at that moment, but when they get home from school or from work, you don't think of that stuff. And so I don't want to miss opportunities when something's on my heart to tell them, to not put it in that journal so they have it at all times. So anyways, I was writing in that day that I was having that brain funk thing. I was writing in my own journal. And then I went in my office and meditated for a while, and I did stretches. And then, what else? I worked on my puzzle, read some of my book, and it felt good. And I enjoyed the day. And I didn't do any of the work I wanted to do, but I was okay with it because my brain needed some nurturing. So that was good.
Yeah. You love your kids so much, don't you?
I do.
Where do you think that love comes from?
My mom and dad are awesome. They love me. Yeah. I'm super close with my parents. And so, yeah, affection was never at a loss in my house. I still have my dad saved in my phone as Daddy. Yeah. They spent Saturday with them. We went to an event together, and I'm super close with them. So, yeah. That's why your parents can really, really fuck you up, or they can really help you.
Yeah.
Like, how you treat your kids and what you say to your kids is everything. There was an example in the 4 Agreements. You said you haven't read that.
I have.
Oh, you have. Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right, you have. So it was the third door I was thinking of. Okay, so the 4 Agreements, there was that part in there how words have the power to bring nations down or the power to change everything. The words are everything. And so there's the story of the mother that came home from work and her daughter was singing. Do you remember that story? The daughter was singing. She was a little girl, and the mom said, "Please stop singing. I have a headache. It's not sounding good in my head right now," or something like that. And the daughter never sang again.
Oh, I remember,
you remember
that now. Yeah.
So this girl loved to sing. She's a little girl, just took so much joy in singing. And her mom, by just those words at that moment, and the mom didn't think anything of it. I mean, what mom hasn't had their toddler screaming and singing and it's like, "Oh my gosh, cut it out." We've all done it, but we don't know the impact those have in the kids. The moment that you look in the mirror as an adult and think, "Gosh, I look fat," and you say it out loud, your kid might be in the doorway and listening to you, and they have now picked up that thought that, "Oh, I'm fat." And you've just created a habit in them that they're going to struggle with the rest of their life. You don't know the impact your words have. Even flippantly. Like, "Oh, look at that," blah, 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 fill in the blank with any kind of like derogatory word, right? I mean, that kid picks that up. And they don't even sometimes know what the word is, but they know it caused the stir, so they're going to use it. And then we don't know what hate or self-hate or just negative mindset we're giving to kids by just saying those things.
Yeah.
And so my parents just never did that. Like, if I came home with someone of a different race or the same sex or anything, they wouldn't have cared. Like, they've always loved me. Like, I've never felt nervous about that. I mean, my daughter came out to my grandparents, and my grandpa saw some guy walking by with a gay pride shirt, and he goes, "Hey, look!" And he pointed out to her, and she's like, "All right, Grandpa, thanks." But he was so excited to be like, "Oh, I can communicate." He wanted her to know, like, "I'm right here."
Oh my gosh.
But my parents were always just very supportive of me and never made me, now, limited mindset of one thing, yes. Like, like loving was never at a small capacity. Capability was to them, they never really realized their full potential. But I think because at least they had that love thing nailed down in that support, helped me to fly. You know what I mean? Like, they never doubted me, so I'm not going to ever doubt myself. Like, it's one thing when parents doubt themselves, but if you give doubt to your kid, that's not good either.
Right.
But they at least never doubted me. So a lot of people don't have that, though, so that's why I like what I do with coaching. It's like, I want, at least if one person can tell this person, "You can do anything. Let's figure out how." I would love to do that.
That's awesome.
Mic drop.
I'm thinking about that story of what of your dad, grandpa, to your daughter when she came. That's just so, it's just pure love, and I love that so much. So I was just sort of replaying that moment in my head. But
Yeah,
what a cool moment.
There's the eye roll moments like, thanks, Grandpa. But yeah, it's even my husband. We've been together for 5 years, and he's like, your parents just, they love everybody, don't they? I'm like, yeah, they pretty much do. They're just awesome. Yeah.
A question I ask every guest, I'll ask you later, is what's the question do you have for my next guest? And I don't tell them anything about the person. And my prior guest question for you was simply, what's been one of your greatest struggles?
Getting my own way. I think, and not necessarily what people say to me, but what I think people will say to me. Like if I succeed, what are people from my past who I didn't get along with going to say about me? Who fucking cares? But it still gets in my head.
Me too.
I don't like posting on social media anyway. I'm an introvert, but I don't, there's still always in my head, especially for so long working in wellness, you're constantly looked at for your physique and if you're in good shape. So it's always in my head, like, do I look okay? Do I look okay? And I hate that. Posting a picture, I hate my smile. Will people say something? Or if I post something that I did, are people going to say, oh, well, we constantly worry about stupid stuff, especially kids nowadays with social media, I would imagine. But just worrying what other people think. I don't know why. And I think I get in my way, those thoughts sometimes get in my way. I won't do things. And it's like, oh, I don't want someone to think I'm an idiot. I don't know where it comes from. Maybe I need to journal that.
Possibly.
I think I need to journal that. Yeah, I don't know where it comes from. I'm better at it, for sure. But it's turned into a little bit more of a motivation. Like, what are they going to think about me? Well, fucking show them. Like, there's somebody had said something to me recently, like a dismissive thing that was like, oh, you wouldn't know what that's like, or something like that. And when it came to success, not because I'm not, but not because I was not at his level. He's a millionaire. And I said to him, and I don't know if he heard me, probably not, but I said out loud to him, I said, give it a moment. And I was like, he has now become one motivation to me. Like, I can't wait until, like, I don't need to say a word because he'll know. Because he's kind of full of himself. So, yeah, I can't wait till one day he's like, oh, shit, I underestimated her.
Someone said something to me that I had that experience for the first time in my life where it was motivating. I was talking about the podcast, and it was before, I think it was before I even recorded a single episode, but I said something about how, I think to the effect that I hope it replaces my job, and I'd like to turn it into a business or something along those lines. And the response was, you don't even have a podcast. All you have is a dream.
That's somebody who doesn't believe in their own dreams, and they're putting it on you.
And for me, it was almost like fire.
I can't
because
wait
I wanted
to
get
show
the
you.
first episode out to be like, it's real now, buddy. Oh, no, that's right. I just remembered. The first 3 episodes were out already, and I had like 4 or 5 more recorded, and that was part of my response. Was like, no, but I'm doing it.
Yeah. Too late.
You're right.
Whoopsies.
This isn't a dream. Like it's like I have 2 real microphones and people that have sat across from me. Like it's happened.
That's somebody who's never going to reach their own dreams if they can't even like be happy for somebody else with one. That's just somebody with stuff they need to work out. That's again for agreement stuff. Like his response to you is 100% because he doesn't believe in himself.
Yeah.
It's sad.
I wonder what I should have said back to him. Because it was over social media and I said nothing back. I sort of went into the mind frame of when my mom would tell me, all right, David, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything. Yeah. So I just deleted the message and I was like, whatever. I didn't block him or anything because I wanted him to be able to continue to see the success. I just did because I also didn't want to go back and reread it. Because I felt like that
you don't want anything in your way.
Yes.
You don't want anything to fuck your mind up. Like,
right.
Yeah. I would have done that too. Like, no, I'm not even going to look at that shit.
Yep.
It has no room in my space. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe nothing. Maybe that was the right
Some-
decision, just to say
nothing is-
nothing, not
Yeah.
engage, and because it's negative.
Yeah.
Like you
Don't
were
give it
saying
any
about
energy.
politics, or like in Think and Grow Rich in chapter 4, they were asking him questions about things that had nothing to do with his profession, and his rebuttal after a couple of questions was, why would I need to know any of this?
Yes,
If
yeah.
I need to find the answer, if this comes up and it affects my business, I will go seek that knowledge. But there is no reason for me to be cluttering my
Henry
head.
Ford it was Henry Ford that said
That's
it when
it.
he was on trial, right?
Yes.
Yes, I remember that.
I
Yep.
love that, but I was like, yes, that's so true. With the internet, if I don't want to go to the internet, maybe it's coaching related, I can call you when that
Yeah.
comes up. I don't need to have that knowledge right now.
Yeah. Editor. Editor.
I really
Time to get yourself hey, if there's anybody out there that is good at editing,
email sitbackwithdavid@yahoo.com, please, please.
when you're sitting back listening to this, you're like, gosh, I wish I had something to work on. I really like to edit things. I wish somebody needed an editor. This is the universe speaking to you.
Yes. If you could go back in time and talk to your prior self, would you? And could you tell me a little bit about how old you were and what you were going through at the time?
I was sexually molested at 4, raped twice, 2 times in college. And because of that, I did not value what I brought. I thought my value was physical. And that really messed with me. There was somebody who had said, too, like, to just give yourself away physically to anybody. You call it empowerment, but it's not. It's saying this isn't of much value. Anybody can have it. And for some reason, I think I just gave up what I thought was valuable about myself. I thought I don't have that value anymore. And so it didn't matter to me. But I lived that. I was treated like a victim, and then I held on to that. I took that like a gift, and it wasn't. And so I carried that along the way, and I don't think I'd go back and say anything to myself, because I like where I am right now, and I needed those lessons when I had them. I needed to beat myself up for a little bit to be where I was now. If I went back and said anything to myself, I would go back with the energy I have now, in the hope I have now and what's to come, in the love that I have now, in the life, and I would just say, it's all going to be fine. Just do your best.
Yeah.
It's all going to be fine. Because I wouldn't change a thing. If I changed one little thing, like butterfly effect, I don't know where I'd be. But I'm super happy with where I am right now. My husband, oh my gosh, he's the most beautiful thing in the world. Like, seriously. Like, even if we're having an argument, he walks away, I'm just like, oh, his ass. I can't be mad at him long, because the second he walks away, I just gawk at him. And he's just like, our physical chemistry and our emotional, he's so perfect. So I just can't fathom being with anybody else.
Yeah.
My kids, my daughter comes over and we watch Succession every Monday together. And she's like one of my best friends. And my son, he's like my little man that he's bigger than me. But, he wraps his arms around me. He loves me. I mean, he will tear up when he tells me how much he loves me. I mean, I can't ask for anything different. Except for now I'm going to have this business that I'm working on. But I'm just happy with where I am. And all of that stuff is a culmination of what I've been through and what I had to struggle with and deal with and learn from. And instead of choosing to be a victim of all the things that happened to me, I chose to learn from all those things that happened to me. And then I learned, where did it take me and where did I not become a victim of it? And I can help other people when they're struggling with it. Like, I get it. I understand where you've been. Here's what helped me. And so I wouldn't change the thing. So I wouldn't tell myself anything other than just keep going. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
I think I probably needed to go through self-pity for a while too. So I don't think I'd even say, you're going to do great. I wouldn't have done. I don't know if I'd say anything. Yeah. What about you?
Oh,
It's hard.
I haven't
isn't
thought
it?
about that for myself yet. No one's asked it back. The only thing I thought about changing is if I had come out sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Because I waited till I was 26 years old.
That's late.
And I spent so much time not being true to myself
Yeah.
that, you know, would it have been better? I don't know, because I'm having the same thought that you did. It's just like the movie Ashton Kutcher did.
Oh, Butterfly.
Butterfly. You know,
Yeah.
I am so... In March, I was thinking about the month of March. Probably slept the least, worked the most amount of hours, but I've never been happier. Seeing this get off the ground, and part of the reason I have never been happier is because of people like yourself, the guests, who have been so honest and transparent. Because this was just going to be a hobby. It's sort of what you said about your business when you said it's probably going to be worth so much more than what I thought it would be originally. I'm having the same revelation that I pray to God that everyone who's listening, you know, goes and gives this a 5-star review on Spotify and a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, because I believe that there is someone out there who was a victim of rape and molestation, and maybe they'll hear this episode and realize it'll be okay.
Oh, yeah, it's worth it if one person can utilize anything. One person. If your story of not coming out until much later, and then, like, how happy are you right now?
I'm chilling.
Like, it's just freaking be you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so much better than trying to be somebody else for somebody else. Like, yeah, it's just if one person could hear your own words and changes their life, that was worth everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's amazing that the effect that all those bad things can actually have eventually for someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, we forget that, though, when we're going through things.
What would you like me to ask the next
Oh,
guest?
shit. I was like, I hope we have a lot of more time before that. Cause
I have one other question I was debating if I wanted to ask you.
Ask me then.
Okay. So I'm going to read this through chapter 4 of Think and Grow Rich.
Mm-hmm.
And I am just so similar to you. I also overthink everything,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't want to delay. I wanted to follow his instructions. So I just threw down a random date and a random number because I respect you and I really admire you. I wanted to get your feedback on sort of what my mission is for the podcast.
Okay.
By December 31st of 2024, I will have in my possession $100,000, which will come to me in various amounts from time to time in the interim. In return for this money, I will produce the best version of David Saturday Night Sit Back that I am capable of, rendering the fullest possible quantity, which will be a minimum of 1 episode per week, and the best possible quality, audio and content, in my capacity as host of the show. I believe I will have this money in my possession. My faith, which is complete trust and confidence in my ability to deliver what I wrote above, is so strong I can now see this money before my eyes. I can touch it with my hands. It is now awaiting transfer to me at the time and in the proportion that I publish episodes of David Saturday Night Sit Back that I intend to create for this $100,000. I am awaiting a plan in which I will accumulate this money, and I will follow that plan when it is received. And then after I wrote it down, I did go on YouTube and I put in what would $100,000 look like in $100 bills, because I wanted to be able to get that visualization of like, I really don't know what that would look like. Would it be a tiny, but it would probably be a stack about this big, or, you know, if you had it in 2 stacks right next. So it was sort of cool. And I did some just deep breathing in and out while watching this 3-minute video, and they stacked it all flat. And then they did one high stack and they sort of threw it at, and so it was cool just getting like all these different visualizations. But now I actually know what it looks like, which is cool. But I guess my sort of question, it's sort of a general question. What are your thoughts? And also, you know, around the dates and the dollar amount, like I just threw a number out there. I didn't really know what to put, but
I actually think the number is going to be higher, but stick with it.
Okay.
I think it's good. You just go with your first gut, and then like mine was 1 billion by 2030. Mm-hmm. I'm going to change that. I'm going to exceed that, but I'm keeping that's the minimum. Go with that and then see what happens. I don't know. I think you'll get past that.
I think so too. I guess my question also sort of on behalf of anyone that's listening is how do you know if you're underselling yourself? Like if your goals, like if I had put $1,000, you would have been like, David, come on.
Yeah. I think your limiting beliefs start breaking down little by little, and then you might look at that in 6 months and be like, that was 100,000. That's so funny. Right. And then you change it.
Well, that's what I figured. I'll just rewrite it. And the name of the show might change.
And that's just proof that it's working.
Right.
Because you're already past that.
Right.
Yeah. Have you watched The Secret?
No.
Okay. That's another one of visualization. Because my husband actually he said he was visualizing our business that we're building with this. And he was doing his journaling, and he's not an emotive guy. He doesn't cry. He's a tender, kind person, so sweet, but he's just not an emotive person. And so I've never seen him cry. He said he cried once in his life, and it was watching Mighty Ducks.
Great movie if you're going to cry to a movie.
I guess. So I even tease him, like, even if I die, you're never going to cry. And he's like, oh, babe, I probably cry. Anyways, so he was doing his visualization of, like, thinking through the business, and he was visualizing him walking through a hallway with some of our executives for our company and walked past a new employee that was on the side, and he said, guys, go ahead, I'm gonna grab lunch with him. And he went over to this guy and he said, hey, come to lunch with me. And the guy was like, oh my gosh. And so they went out to lunch together, and he was asking him questions about his family and everything. And he said he started crying. He was sitting at the table visualizing this, and he had tears coming down his eyes. And he's like, and I knew without a shadow of a doubt, I was feeling the emotions of that young guy that was having lunch with me after we've grown this business, that this guy cares about me. He's like, I literally felt like I was that guy feeling his emotions. And he's like, that terrified me. I haven't done visualization since, because it's like, that's so real. He felt the guy's emotions. And he's like, I never had visualization work so well before. And so I think I think visualizing that like you were doing is really good because it works. And I tried doing that. I was listening to an audiobook of a woman who sold her business for a couple $2 billion. And she was talking about the things that were happening during that day, and I was just trying to imagine myself in her place, like going through the gift she got from somebody. And I started welling up like with emotion. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling it. Here we go. And just really dig into that emotion, and it makes it even closer. Like the visualization is so real. So like I would even go as far as to like imagine, like writing yourself a deposit check, or like printing up the check with your name on it. That's what my husband did with us. He wrote a check with our name on it for $1 billion, and he has it on his vision board. Do as many of those visualizations as possible. Actually do them first thing in the morning or right before bed, because those are the two times that you're in alpha state. And so it will seep in a little bit more right before you fall asleep and right when you wake up. I can't do it right when I wake up. My brain's too mush. But 3 a.m. But as I'm going to sleep, I always do visualizations, and it puts me right to sleep. But I think that statement you had was good.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I guess that's one thing that, because I did something similar when you were talking about the woman that sold her business. I saw that someone who has one of the top ranking podcasts in the world, it's Alex Cooper, Call Her Daddy, and she went on someone else's podcast where they interviewed her about the early days of the podcast and how she got it up and running. And it was such a motivator to me of, it gave me all these ideas and it got me excited. And I like to give everyone, I feel like naturally you've given them a dozen tips. Tips is an understatement. Very beautiful pieces of advice today, but as just one additional practical one, if you have some idea around a business, whatever it is, maybe find someone who has made it and read their book, watch their interview. It
helps so much.
It's because it makes you feel like you can do it too.
Yeah. And it's the book I was reading. It was actually Believe It by Jamie Kern Lima, and she sold It Cosmetics for $2.2 billion. And she created it out of her living room with her husband. And they were struggling just even make $100 withdraw out of their bank account for a while. And she had said, like, she had literally prayed, all right, God, please send me somebody. And shortly after that, somebody from the QVC booth came to her. She was at an event and said, oh, I looked at your product. I really love you. I want you to meet our buyer. And so that was the thing that catapulted her career. Years later, she was talking to that woman that came by the booth that knew the buyer. And she said, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'm so glad you liked the product. She goes, oh, hon, I actually never even tried your product. I was walking past you and something just told me to come talk to you. And I don't know what it was. And I was like, oh, goosebumps. Like, she just felt the prompting. God, universe, whatever, just said, go talk to her. And she just talked. And that's what changed Jamie's life. There was another thing she said in it, too, that she said so many experts would come up to her and say, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you got to do it this way. And she just kept feeling that thing in her gut. She said, no, I got to do it the way my gut's telling me I got to do it. And it was the thing that made her stand apart from the rest. And she's like, there's experts everywhere telling you things. And they're going to tell you can't do it this way or you need to do things this way. If your gut is telling you you need to go a certain way, that's the right way. No matter what they say, go with your gut. And I was like, okay, that's good advice. Because it's true. Listen to your gut. That's why it's important to be healthy.
Yeah.
If you're not healthy, it's hard to hear what your gut is telling you.
Right. Good gut health.
Gut
Take
health.
your ounce of apple cider vinegar every
Yep.
morning. Eat your kimchi.
You're not going to feel your intuition otherwise.
Right.
But yeah, the books are important. They're really helpful.
Yeah. Okay, back to the question you didn't want.
Ah, shit. You didn't forget about it.
No.
I want it to be a very good question because I want it to hopefully change their life. What's one thing you could do today that would change your story for the better?
I like that one. Okay, good.
Okay.
If someone wanted to get coaching from you, I mean, I found you. If you Google Heather Bennet, Austin, Texas, it's probably going to come up. Do you know off the top of your head what your Instagram handle is?
Heather Bennet Training. But my web address is heatherbennettraining.com or heatherbennetcoaching.com.
Awesome.
2 N's, 2 T's.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I enjoyed every second of the last couple of hours. You're just such a ray of light, and you have so much knowledge. Even just hearing about your family motivated me. I'm going back home in a couple of weeks to see my family, and you've even given me some ideas of just putting away the cell phone, being super affectionate to all of them the whole 5 days that I'm home. I already am, but like this is the first time I've moved 1,800 miles away from them. We spent every Friday night and Sunday together as a result of COVID. That was sort of the silver lining as we all got together at Mom's, and we got a lot closer during that time. But they went from seeing me twice a week to now not seeing me at all for about 5 months.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to make sure to be very affectionate. And even just little stuff. Like I know my mom loves it when I call her mommy, and I've stopped doing that as I've got older. And maybe I'll give her a surprise, and I'll just say, I don't care who hears it, because it doesn't fucking matter at the end of the day.
It doesn't, except for to her.
If it means the world to her, and I say it, and it's like you were saying earlier, I think in my head, that guy at the checkout line over is probably thinking, oh, that guy's a pussy for calling him mommy, when he probably didn't even hear the compliment because he's in his own head about something else.
It's his own thing.
So why am I not calling her that if it would mean the world to her?
We give up amazing relationships, amazing opportunities, and our dreams to come true based on what some stranger's fucking thinking in their head.
Right.
What in the hell? Like the thing, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's evolutionary of survival. Yeah. But we don't need to worry about that to survive anymore, so get rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on David Saturday Night Sit Back. Everyone, don't forget to give this show 5 stars on Spotify, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. If you're looking for a coach, hit up Heather. And in the meantime, have a healthy and happy Saturday night. We'll see you next week.